WAV files or MP3s? Which one should you be using for live music production? And are WAV files really that much better? This is an often debated topic, so I figured I'd make a video on it and do some tests. I'm going to do some sound tests for you. I'm going to go over some common talking points such as file size, CPU usage, and quality. I'm also going to weigh the pros and cons so you can make the decision that's right for you and your needs. For this video in particular, I'm focusing more on backing tracks for like live shows. So if you are using backing tracks live, should you be using WAV files or MP3 files? I've done a lot of videos on backing tracks on my channel, and that's usually what I get asked about is should I be using WAV or MP3s for my backing tracks? However, you can apply this in other fields of audio and music and songs and stuff like that as well. In case if you're not familiar with it, let's just do a brief definition of the two. WAV files are lossless and uncompressed, so they're going to give you a full sound. There's no loss in audio quality with WAV files. However, the file sizes are oftentimes much bigger. With MP3s, it will compress the sound a little bit, and it is not lossless, meaning that you will lose some of the sound quality with them. However, the file sizes are much smaller. It's a very basic definition of it. However, the issue lies in that definition. People will hear MP3s make me lose audio quality. Oh my God, I can't use those. I have to use WAV files. The reality is that MP3s actually remove data that is inaudible to human hearing, or at least is less important. But my point is just going off the definition alone isn't actually that useful. It sounds big and scary. Oh God, I'm going to lose audio quality. But what's more important is to hear them and use them in real world scenarios. So it's more important to hear it, not just focus on the definition. So let's do a tone test. I'm going to do 3 different samples, and let's hear the difference between a WAV file, a high quality MP3, and a low quality MP3 file. One's going to be a WAV file, one's going to be a 320 kilobits per second MP3, and the other one's going to be a 128 kilobits per second MP3. We can spend a whole video going over what these definitions are, what's the difference between the sample rate and the bit depth, what are kilobits per second. I don't really want to focus on just textbook read what these mean, but kilobits per second just means the quality of the audio for the MP3. The higher the number of the kilobits per second, or kbps for short, the better the quality will be for the MP3. 320 for an MP3 is the highest quality for an MP3, and then 128 kilobits per second is considered a low quality MP3 file. Also in the middle, there's 256 kilobits per second. That's considered a mid quality MP3, but I'm not going to use that for these examples. So we're going to have a WAV file, which is lossless. We're going to have a 320 MP3, which is a high quality MP3, and we're going to have a 128 MP3, which is considered a low quality MP3. I'm going to do 6 different songs, and they're all going to be different styles and genres, and I'm not going to tell you which one either. I've watched other videos where people do this test and they go, this is the WAV and this is the MP3. Can you hear the difference? And that just sets you up for being biased, going, oh yeah, I totally hear the difference. The lossless one sounds better. When really it's just your bias. You should be doing this blind, so that's the way I'm going to do this. I'm going to do a blind tone test. So I'm going to give you 3 samples plus a bonus one. So the first 3 is going to be in a random order. It's either going to be a WAV, a 320 MP3, or a 128 MP3. See if you can guess which one is which. And then if you think you know all of them, I'm going to give you the 4th one as a bonus. I'm not going to tell you which one it is, but it's going to be a repeat of one of those types of files. So let me know what the bonus one is. If you truly can hear a difference, you should be able to get all 4 of them correct, including the bonus one. So here's a test. Write them down as you're figuring it out, and I'll let you know at the end. Here's a test. See how well you do. So, how'd you do? Here are the answers to all of them, including the bonus ones. Pause the screen if you want to check your work. Did you get all of these right? I'm willing to bet that 99.9% of people did not get all of these correct. I'm willing to bet that most people are like myself and go, I don't really hear a difference between them. Maybe between the 320 and the 128, that's possible, but especially between WAV and 320 MP3, it's almost impossible to hear the difference between those. The idea for this video was actually borrowed from an old Rick Beato video that he did, which was very similar. He had 6 different songs, 6 different styles, and he had like a student or a friend that he knew who has perfect pitch and did this test, and even she didn't get all of them right. It was a test that was on NPR.com. I'll link to that video down below if you want to check it out. And whenever I get asked this question, what I've done is I've just referred them to that video. But because I do a lot on backing tracks on this channel, I wanted to make this video specifically and do the same type of test with backing tracks. And the reason why is because with that video, with Rick Beato's video, it was on full songs, the full studio mix, everything, the whole production, and it was still hard to hear the difference. Backing tracks are actually just meant to add to the sound. It's not a full mix. It's just meant to add to the sound. It's not the full band mix, unless, of course, the artist is lip syncing, which is a whole different topic. Some people really don't understand the difference between lip syncing and backing tracks. I have a video going over that if you're interested. But backing tracks are meant to add to the show. They're meant to augment the show, and it's samples and sounds that complement the musicians already playing on stage. So backing tracks aren't even the full track. It's already hard, if not impossible, to hear the difference between a WAV and a 320 MP3 just listening to it isolated. Putting it in a live context with a band playing with it, it's even less likely that you're going to be able to hear the difference. But if you truly think that you can hear a difference between a WAV and a high quality MP3, put it in a mix. Listen to the backing track with a mix and see if you truly can hear a difference. It's almost impossible to hear isolated. It's even tougher to hear in a band mix in a live setting. And going one step further, if you clicked on this video, you're likely a musician or a sound guy or someone who has an ear for music already. I am positive that the audience is not going to be able to tell the difference. A casual listener is not going to be able to tell the difference between WAV and MP3. You're not going to be playing Wonderwall at a bar gig and there's going to be a guy up front crossing his arms looking at his buddy going, "Do you hear that cello sample? deal. This guy's using a high-end MP3 file. He's not using a lossless WAV file. That's not going to happen. In some other videos, people will tell you that you need to use a WAV file, and they'll take a WAV file, and then they'll take an MP3 file, and they'll flip the polarity of the MP3 file and say, listen back, this is all the information that you're missing. Now, that's an interesting result for sure. It is interesting to hear that. But again, that's what I'm talking about is like, oh, that sounds just so scary. Listen to all the audio that you're missing. But if you listen to a WAV file and a high-end MP3 file and you truly can't hear the difference, that's what's important. And especially being able to hear it in a mix, 99.99% of people are not going to be able to hear the difference between them. So what's the main benefit of MP3s is the file size. The file size is much smaller and much more manageable than WAV files. Here's some examples just of the ones that I did. For PYT, the WAV file was 66 megabytes. The 320 MP3 was 9.4, and the 128 MP3 was 4.4 megabytes. Come Away With Me, the WAV file was 54.5 megabytes. The 320 MP3 was 8.4, and the 120 MP3 was 3.4 megabytes. I have to think saying megabytes, not megabits, because we're talking about kilobits per second. That was hard for my brain to say all those words. But the results were the same throughout basically all of the songs. WAV files generally are 5 to 6 times the size of a 320 MP3. And then the 128 MP3 is usually a little less or around half of the size of a 320 MP3. And those are just the normal settings too. You can export a WAV file actually at 32-bit sample rate, and it's 192 kilohertz. If you do that, the PYT WAV file ended up being at 352.6. So that's 5 times the normal wave. That's 37 times the size of the 320 MP3 file. Insanely massive. And you also can go down really low with an MP3 file. You can go to a 32, yes, I said 32 kbps MP3 file, which sounds like shit. You should not do that. I don't care what the file size is, don't do that. But in general, WAV files are 5 to 6 times the file size of a 320 MP3 file. So for me, the way that I do my backing tracks, at least with my covers, I do it a little bit different with Spiral Cell, but with covers, I have 5 different tracks that I export. Drums, bass, tracks, click, and cues. Those are my 5 that I export. So I have 5 different files for every single song. I personally use Stage Tracks 3. I have 4 different videos on this app. I really love this app. You can check it out. I'll link to it down below. I have multiple bands I play with. When I play with my wife, we have a duo called the Yule Duo. Sometimes we just play as a 2-piece and I put the drums and the bass in the backing track and we just play along. Other times we'll hire band members and we'll take out the drums and we'll take out the bass, but the tracks click and the cues are still going. My 90s cover band, 90% 90s, we usually have the bass in the track. Sometimes we'll perform live with a live bass player. Other times we need to play a song so that our drummer can take a pee break so we can add the drums back into the track. But regardless, I have 5 files per song, and I have 405 songs currently in my Stage Tracks 3. That's how many backing tracks I've made. And I looked at my folder, and it's actually at about 18.5 gigabytes. So if I had to multiply that by 6, that'd be about 111 gigs that it would take to fit all of these tracks as a WAV file. Now my iPad is 256 gigs, so technically I can do it, but do you really want to have that big of a file size? 405 songs is a lot of them. With my original music Spiral Cell, I have about 20-ish songs. That's not going to be as big as like cover bands doing 4-hour sets where we have a ton of material. It's up to you, of course, but I would rather have smaller file sizes, especially if I can't hear the difference. And last but not least, there's the debate about the CPU usage. So since MP3s are compressed, a computer has to decompress or decode the files in order for it to play back properly. I'm not a computer processing guy, so my terms might not be exact, but the idea is that it takes more CPU power because it needs to take this extra step with MP3 files. And it doesn't need to do that for WAV files because, again, WAV files are completely lossless and uncompressed. This is another example where that is true, that absolutely is true, but it sounds more scary than it actually is. Most computers and iPads and tablets and stuff like that are able to process MP3s with no problem. So again, let's not worry about the definitions. Let's try it in a real world scenario. So I'm going to test this out in Ableton. Ableton's a great DAW for running backing tracks. I have a video on a beginner's guide on setting up backing tracks if you're interested. With my cover bands, I use Stage Tracks 3. With my original music, Spiral Cell, I actually use Ableton. But the thing that's nice about it is it has a CPU meter right up in the upper right. I'm going to load up all 7 WAV files. I only demoed 6, but I did a 7th one that I think was going to get copyright. But either way, I'm going to play all 7 WAV files all at once, and then I'm going to play all 7 320 MP3 files all at once. And let's see what the CPU meter says. FYI, playing all these tracks at the same time sounds terrible. It sounds like this. So I'm going to spare you and myself from that. I'm just going to mute the tracks, but we're going to look at the CPU meter. But here you go. Here are the results. Okay, so your CPU meter is up here. Let's play the WAV file first. You can see it's staying around 2%. So barely doing much. Let's go ahead and click the 320 MP3 files. You can see that these are also just staying at 2%. Even if I change my buffer size, if I change my buffer size to 32 samples, let's go ahead and hit play. WAV files stay around 7%. Let's stop it and do the 320 MP3, and it's around 7 as well. Barely any difference in the CPU usage. Both of them are completely fine. So the CPU usage is so minimal, especially with modern computers, you definitely don't really have to worry about that at all. If you're using more than 7 multi-tracks, then go ahead and test it yourself, check out the CPU meter and see what it says. But again, it's going to be very, very negligible. So in my opinion, the best option is 320 kilobits per second MP3s for your backing tracks. I truly do not hear a difference between the two. If for some reason you do and it's not a bias thing, I guarantee it's even less noticeable in an entire mix. It saves on space, it's like 1/6 the file size, and the CPU usage is so negligible. In my opinion, 320 MP3s are the way to go. But honestly, do what works best for you. Truly, just whatever you prefer. If you don't agree with the way that I did this test, or if you don't want to accept them, I've found over the years after doing this channel is tone stuff people are very, very defensive about, and they don't want to accept these results. Honestly, just do what you enjoy. It doesn't really matter. If you truly want to have WAV files and it works for you, do it. It doesn't matter. I use wireless at every gig, even if I'm doing a little coffee shop set. I have a wireless for my guitar, for my vocals, and for in-ears if I'm using in-ears. I love a clean stage. It makes me happy. It's completely unnecessary, but I like to do that. If you like using WAV files, use them. Go for it. I just personally have settled on 320 MP3s myself for the reasons I went over, and I've used 320 MP3s for years. I've used backing tracks for well over 10 years. It's worked completely fine. Sounds great, and it works great for my setup. Do what works best for you, but if you're asking my opinion, 320 MP3s are the way to go. If you guys found the video helpful, do me a favor and hit the thumbs up button. It's a free way to support the channel, and consider subscribing if you want to see more videos like this in the future. Let me know in the comments of how you run your backing tracks. Let me know if you're using WAV or MP3 or another file type. There are a ton of different options for file types. It's just MP3s and WAVs are the most common. If you're using a different one, leave a comment down below and let me know why. If you want to see a video on how I create my backing tracks, I have a long video guide going over that in detail with my thought process and how I create my backing tracks. And I also have a video going over 10 tips if you use backing tracks live that are worth knowing. You can check out both those videos by clicking the links on your screen now. Thank you guys again for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you have any other cool ideas for a video, please leave them as a comment down below. Don't forget to follow me on my social media pages at Scott Yule Music. Thank you guys again for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.